Hey, this is Bryce, and thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel, Jack of Trades. Today I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping around the shop, so I wanted to kind of share, I guess, my opinions on LiPo battery storage. I think everyone out there is probably familiar with LiPos, and they've been using LiPos for a while probably. I've been using LiPos for close to 20 years now, I think that's a fair assumption. I think my first experience with LiPo was with the RC helicopters. But a couple years ago, I actually had a garage fire that it didn't cause any structural damage, but it took out my workbench. It took out a bunch of RC stuff on the bench. The fire did, and then actually the smoke damage was the worst. The smoke spread throughout the house, through the attic where I store all my stuff. It actually ruined a lot of my tools in my shop. The smoke is very corrosive, so anything that, any cast iron surface was instantly rusted. I had my 69 Volkswagen bus in the garage at the time of the fire, so that had a lot of smoke damage from exposure to that smoke. Since that fire, I've become extremely vigilant about how I store and charge my LiPos. And that fire was caused by, I was getting some cars ready to take running that day, and I was using a charger that I've used it was a very reliable charger that I'd been using for over a decade, and I was charging a brand new battery that I had never even touched. I just received it for a project that I was working on. I was putting its first charge on it, and the mistake that I made was walking away from it. I was charging and I walked away because I was comfortable. I was complacent with charging LiPos, so I walked away from it, and the fire started. And we didn't even know there was a fire in the garage. Our neighbors came and told us they saw smoke coming out of our eaves, and we ran I wasn't even home. I left the house. My wife was home, so my wife went in the garage and she was able to extinguish most of the fire. Actually, I would say she extinguished the fire, because fortunately we had a fire extinguisher right next to the sink, and she went for the sink before the fire extinguisher to try to put out that fire. But at some point she kind of gave up and had to leave the garage for her own safety. That's another kind of a side topic, is, just because you have fire extinguishers, doesn't mean you're going to use them when there's a fire. It's important to train with fire extinguishers, to know how to use them, and to kind of go through, simulations, I don't know. But there's a saying that says your body doesn't go where your mind's never been. So if you haven't trained to use a piece of equipment or a piece of safety equipment, you're not going to use it in the time of need, because, when there's an emergency, you're kind of acting on instinct. So just because you have fire extinguishers doesn't necessarily mean you're prepared to use them. And actually, one trick that I heard recently is, as you keep these fire extinguishers in your house, they start to lose their charge, and the economy of fire extinguishers is such that it's cheaper to buy a new one than just to go and recharge it, unfortunately, and that's a whole nother topic. this throwaway society that we live in. But anywho, if you have fire extinguishers that are kind of expired, or they've lost their charge, you can use those. You can actually train with those. You can take them out to the backyard and show your family how to use the fire extinguisher, because essentially you're going to be disposing of that fire extinguisher anyways. So it's a great opportunity to practice with one, and that's my little spiel on fire extinguishers. So what I really wanted to share was some of my LiPo storage solutions, and how I store and charge my LiPos, and I'll go ahead and flip the camera around for that. All right, so other than just leaving your batteries in your car, which I don't recommend, there's several solutions for storing LiPos and charging LiPos, and we see a couple options here. If you go to the BatSafe website, they have some really good videos kind of demonstrating the different solutions, and I know there's a bias because you're on their website and it's their content, but the videos are pretty compelling. The BatSafe seems to be obviously the best solution, but they're not inexpensive. So I use my BatSafe to both, well, I use it mainly for storing some batteries. Here, this is actually a new one, so I only got a couple batteries in there in the original packaging. I've tried, well, you can use it for charging, but you do need to get extensions for the balance leads. So here you can see kind of this is my BatSafe that I would use for charging. I've got the leads, the banana plugs to go into a power supply. Then I have the balancing connector. And you need extensions because usually those balancing connectors are pretty short. So here's an extended balancing connector. Right now you can see I've got batteries. And since that fire, I've become pretty paranoid about lithium batteries. So for example, I picked up a bunch of these 18650s, but when I received them, let me back up. A lot of consumer electronics that have rechargeable batteries use 18650s, including cordless drills. So if I have batteries that die, I'll rebuild those batteries with new cells. And I bought these cells off eBay, and they're supposed to be high capacity, and there's kind of a correlation between capacity and weight of the battery. So when I received, and these are 6,800 milliamp hours, which is really high. Usually they're around 3,000 or 3,500 milliamp hours. When I received these are incredibly light. So something was a little fishy, and ultimately these don't have enough materials inside, the materials they use for the chemistry of generating electricity to have the capacity of 6,800 milliamp hours. So these are below average in weight. These are like paper light, and because of that, I called the company that sold them to me on eBay. They gave me a full refund, and these are basically waiting to be disposed. I don't even want to use these because I don't trust them. So yeah, you can put your you put your battery in here, and then you close it up and you charge it, and you have your leads from outside. Otherwise, the solutions aren't really turnkey out there because you have these bags that you can put stuff in. You have these BatSafes, but they don't talk about, well, how do you get your wires in and out? Because usually the leads for charging are pretty short. So you need to get some extensions if you're going to charge in these boxes. So the alternate, the cheap solution are these quote unquote fireproof or fire resistant bags, and basically it's a fiberglass material with overmolded silicone. I don't really trust these in general. I've never tested one. I've seen test videos, and I don't know. Personally, I don't trust them for storing my LiPos. I store my NiCads in these. Basically, anything rechargeable I try to store in a bag or a box, and the exception being my power tool batteries. And then this is where I primarily store my batteries. These ammo cans. They're it's a metal ammo can, so they're pretty robust. But there is one thing you have to do to these before you use them, otherwise they can be incredibly dangerous, and that is you need to drill some kind of a vent hole on the box, so that if something does happen inside, those gases are allowed to discharge from the box. Otherwise, if those gases can't escape, when you have some kind of reaction from a battery melting down, this thing will store the pressure until it doesn't anymore, and then it potentially it's potentially a bigger hazard than had you left the battery outside of the box from the beginning. I'm trying to avoid using buzzwords that might get flagged. So if you get these, drill a hole. And actually I've been kind of complacent. I've had these boxes and I haven't drilled a hole, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. For me, since the easiest way to drill, the lids on these are removable. So basically you have this little piano hinge in the back, and you can kind of slide the lid to the side, and then the lid's off, and then you can take it to the drill press and drill a hole in it. Now I'm going to deburr those holes. And here we have our vented ammo can. In closing, I'd just like to remind everyone to be safe with these batteries, and with both storage and charging them. Keep an eye on them. They can, you know, we get comfortable around these things. They've been around for a while, but they still have a lot of potential to be extremely dangerous. And I know from firsthand experience that, you know, even though we had the amount of destruction that we did, I would consider us very lucky. No one was injured in the fire, and we didn't lose the whole house. We basically had kind of superficial damage to the garage. So yeah, just be safe out there. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.